Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is in Eau Claire on the campus of Chippewa Valley Tech College. We're interviewing Isaac Weix of Mondovi. He's a Republican running in Assembly District 92. Isaac, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thanks for having me.
Programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. First-time candidate, Isaac?
Actually, I've ran before, but this is the first time I've made it to the general election.
Okay, then give us the short version of your bio, please.
Short version of bio. Graduated high school. I graduated out of Elmwood. Joined the Marine Corps. Been in the Marine Corps now for 21 years. Did 6 years active duty where I worked in embassies overseas. I've been everywhere from Eastern Europe to East Africa to South America. So I've made it all around. Did diplomatic security for previous administrations. Then when I got off active duty, I come back, got a degree from Stout, then I got a degree from Eau Claire, got my graduate degree from Eau Claire, and stayed in the Marine Corps Reserve, and while in the Marine Corps Reserve I deployed to Iraq twice, and I'm still in. I'm actually the company first sergeant at Fox Company down in Milwaukee.
Okay. And any particular issues draw you into this campaign for the Assembly, sir?
Particular issues, well, being part of the military for 21 years plus now, especially being where I was and being, seeing the political nature of the way things are, it draws you into it. I mean, you become very sensitive to how politics affects people's lives and how it affects your personal life when you're in the military. And I guess the time is right now. I mean, I see that I've got a lot of experience with this, a lot of experience overseas, a lot of experience with actually helping set up governments, with actually being around government functions. That I think that my experience is valuable here.
If you're a member of the Assembly, one of the biggest issues in this next state budget will be funding for schools. What will be your priorities as we debate future state aid to public schools, sir?
Well, a lot of local control is the biggest thing that I see. Okay. Everybody, you hear this, the meme that, the budget's broken or, school funding is broken. Well, school funding's been broken for the last 30 years, and our government's been broken for the last 230 years or whatever it's been. So it all depends on who's in power, and when you talk about the aid formulas and stuff like that, the aid formulas that they say have been broken for the last 30 years have survived, the Democrats being in full control and the Republicans being in full control, so I don't see the aid formulas changing. If you dig down into them, the aid formulas are the way they are for a reason. It helps equalize the tax burden on individual districts. It basically what it does is it evens out the mill rates in the district. If you didn't have the funding the way it was now, you'd have disparities in that. There'd be disparities in that. That's the word I'm looking for here.
Disparities?
Disparities in that. And the way it is now is ultimately fair, I guess, where, it's like any other government organization, and it's like the one that I'm currently in. It's always, we need more money. And there's always the budget problems at the end of the year. I mean, we're facing one right now. I mean, we're getting into September now. It's the end of the fiscal year. The military is looking at the end of the budget. I mean, we've already had to cancel training and things like that due to budgetary concerns this year. So it's a factor of every level of government has budgetary problems. I mean, you can't predict at the beginning of the year what you're going to be doing at the end of the year. There's so many variables that having it exactly right every year is nearly impossible. So we're going to have these pains at the end of every fiscal year, and I see no difference in the state level government or the federal level government, for that matter. But as far as fixing it, Ultimately, like I said, local control, having local school districts being able to determine where they spend their money is probably going to solve the problem or mitigate the effects of the budgetary process.
A big part of the debate in school funding next year will be over the school choice or voucher program. Do you support those, sir?
I do. If you look at the voucher program, if you narrow the numbers down on it, it actually costs less to educate a child with the voucher program due to the absence of legacy costs and other things that occur in the public school system. Not saying that I would dismantle the public school system in any way. My kids go to public school. I went to public school the whole way up. I like the public school my kids are going to. But I live in rural Wisconsin, and we have, a very close tie to our local schools, where when you live in a big city and you got a lot more transient kids, you got more transient people, I can understand how the parents in those communities would like to have a different option for their kids, and I see no reason not to give that to them.
Governor Walker this summer asked that Wisconsin withdraw from the Common Core standards. Do you have a position on that, sir?
Yes, and to continue on with that, this notion of replacing it with something I think is something that shouldn't be done. Our teachers are educated professionals. They go to school for 4 years plus to become a teacher. We don't need a bureaucrat down in Madison or a politician like myself telling them how to do their job or what to teach. You get a school teacher out of college, she knows what a fourth grader needs to learn, and she knows how to teach that fourth grader. You don't need me telling you what to do. In my opinion, the only state or federal standardized testing that needs to occur in school is the ASVAB test to see if you can get in the military, and the ACT to see if you can get into college. Everything else can be handled by the local school district.
Okay. Let's talk about transportation funding. There's a projection that the transportation fund might be $600–700 million short over the next 2 years budget. Your thoughts on how to fix that deficit, sir?
Let's go back and explain why we have the deficit. The reason we have the deficit in transportation funding is how it's funded. Right now, the transportation fund is funded with a set amount of, a penny amount per gallon per gallon of gasoline.
Yeah, the gas tax is 30.9 cents per gallon.
Correct, and it's 30.9 cents, always 30.9 cents. Yes. The problem that has occurred has to do with the time value of money. This 30.9 cents probably was fine 15, 20 years ago whenever it was established. That money covered the cost. The problem is as time goes forward, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So as time goes forward, that 39 cents that we have for our taxes actually in actual purchasing power is going down. During the same time, we have the cost of doing the work itself is actually going up because inflation is occurring, the cost of materials is going up, the cost of labor is going up, and things like that. So we actually have the funding mechanism is actually reducing in value, and the cost of doing it is actually increasing in value. The solution that's going to happen is we're going to have a funding mechanism that's based on a time value of money in order to make this a sustainable thing. Otherwise, if we just increase it by a set amount, we're going to have the same problem again, unless we actually tie it to the time value of money.
It sounds then like could you consider increasing our gas tax of 30.9 cents and the $75 that you and I pay to register our vehicles?
Well, once again, it's increase, decrease. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tie it to the time value of money. Instead of making this a set amount, we're going to have to make this a percentage is what's going to have to happen. It's like sales tax. Sales tax, 5%, 5.5%, depending on where you live in the state. 5.5% always is increasing because inflation increases, so the amount that you get for it is increasing.
Tied to the price of goods and commodities.
Tied to the price of the goods and commodities. And whatever we do for the funding here, we're going to have to tie it to the price. So whether or not we do it as a percentage, whether or not we do it as a set percentage, or as based on inflation, or based on the cost of it, or based on whatever, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do. Whether or not that's going to increase it, decrease it, it's ultimately going to have to be tied to it. Whether or not that percentage is going to increase it today or tomorrow, but it's something that we're going to have to look at. But increasing registration fees and things like that, once again, that's something else that we could look into. We've got all these high-efficiency automobiles that we have given people tax breaks for. Well, ultimately, that's coming back to harm us in the end because they're not spending as much, money at the gas pumps funding the roads that they're driving on, just like the rest of us are.
Yes.
So the thing is funding, is looking at the mileage of cars and possibly tying your registration fees to the mileage of your car and things like that is another possibility to do that. But the thing is ultimately we have to, do this so we have the time value of money in place, and number two, we have to do this so we don't disproportionately hurt the people on the lowest end. Okay. Because gas taxes are, like any other, taxes on things that we need every day, it disproportionately hurts the people on the lowest end the most.
Frac sand mining must be an issue on the 28th. Do you believe that state government should set basic rules, standards, and local governments couldn't exceed them, or is it purely a local government issue, sir?
Well, local governments, the thing is everybody likes local government when that local government is doing exactly what they want it to do. You've got the township wanting to do one thing, and then you've got the county wanting to do something else, and then the city wanting to do something else, and everybody's screaming about local government. It's like, well, it always depends on which one's doing what you want to do. I can understand having a set guideline by the state that everybody plays in. It would eliminate a lot of these problems. What's happening in the district right now in Buffalo, Trempealeau, and Jackson counties, primarily in Buffalo and Trempealeau counties, due to the way that they have their counties zoned, is you've got this what they're calling balloon on a string effect, where they're actually towns are annexing sand mines that are 7 or 8 miles away and getting a string of land or a ribbon of land out to them. Well, this is creating an issue. They don't have that issue in Jackson County because Jackson County isn't zoned the same way. So what's happening is the township wants the sand mine for the tax dollars. The city wants the sand mine for the tax dollars. The county is saying, we don't want the sand mine, we're going to throw down as much as we can in front of it. Well, the township circumvents the county, goes to the city circumvents it, and we end up with this mess. So whose side do you take here? I mean, which local government do you want to be in control? Right. And the thing is I see a need for the state to come in and have some rules in this. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a real messed up map when we get done. And ultimately, what happens with this is the county that sandbags this, pardon my pun, this whole thing ends up with the tax money anyway. Whether or not it's part of the city's tax base or the township's tax base, they're ending up with the tax money anyway. So they can have their cake and eat it too. They can be opposed to the sand mine and they can get the tax money off of it. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the sand mines.
I have a question on health care funding. As you know, 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care through our Medicaid program. The American Hospital Association says our reimbursement rates are the second lowest in the nation. Do you think those should be increased, the reimbursement rates?
The reimbursement rates, a lot of that is tied. The federal government has, they pay a certain percentage, and the state of Wisconsin pays a certain percentage. Ultimately, my ultimate goal would be get as many people off of Medicaid as possible. Medicaid is something that is for people who, poor people, people that can't afford it. I would like to have people being able to afford their own medical, treatment. So ultimately, the goal in this is to get people out of that program by virtue of increased economic activity and getting people off of it. Right now, I mean, I understand the hospital's problem with this because the Medicaid reimbursement isn't, as much as a lot of times their costs are. Changing that, we're just moving money around. I mean, the whole thing is in a state of flux anyway, due to the whole, the Affordable Care Act isn't fully implemented yet. We've still got, aspects of that are going to come down the pike. who knows what it's going to look like in 2 years. I mean, this thing could, change overnight depending on what happens at the federal level. So to say that we're going to change it or how to change it or increase it or decrease it, a lot of the times it's a very difficult thing to say we're going to do this because we're hamstrung a lot by the federal government. But ultimately, let's get people off of it. Let's increase the economic output of Wisconsin and get people off of these programs to help them, to help the people in poverty. Let's get people out of poverty.
There will be a bill introduced to legalize medical marijuana next year, and now states of Colorado and Washington have legalized recreational use of marijuana. Your positions on those issues?
This is something that all it's going to take is a change at the Attorney General at the federal level, and you're going to have a lot of people going to jail in those states. It's still illegal. No matter how legal Wisconsin makes it or how legal Colorado or Washington make it, it's still illegal federally. Okay? So I wouldn't want to legalize marijuana and put people in this state in jeopardy of prosecution by the federal government if the federal government decides that they're going to want to prosecute this stuff. There is a reason that we don't want to do this, and the federal government is primarily. But going on the other side of this, and we're talking about jobs and everything else, one of the biggest problems that we have here is finding qualified people to do jobs. Truck drivers, workers in factories. I mean, here in Wisconsin, we're the #1 or very close to the top manufacturing state in the country. All of these jobs require drug tests. Why would we legalize something that is going to prevent people from getting the very jobs that we want to fill? So, this is, my brother's in manufacturing. My other brother's got a commercial driver's license. I've got a commercial driver's license. You get drug tested. If you're in a factory, there's more than 100 people, OSHA's going to drug test you. You're going to be drug tested. The thing is why would we take a deterrent away from doing something that's actually going to prevent you from getting a job that we want you to get? Okay. This notion that there's somehow, we can tax it and we're going to make all this money, that's false. They're seeing that play out in Colorado right now. Ultimately, drug users are not very productive members of society, and if they're getting money, it's generally from another productive person. So basically, we're just creating another tax on those of us who actually get up and go to work. So I don't see any reason to do it. It's foolish. We're trying to get rid of cigarettes. Now you want to bring marijuana into the mix?
Okay, 2 questions quickly because we're almost out of time. First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime, Isaac?
No, I think the way we have it right now, it would cost so much more if we made that a crime. It's the penalty for doing it right now. If you get a DUI right now, even though it's not a crime per se, you're going to be spending some money on it, and you're going to be spending some money. It's going to hurt. Okay. And generally speaking, it's the reason people drink and drive or whatever. Make it double, triple illegal, it ain't going to change the reason that people drink and drive.
And then finally, I want to give you a chance, if you want to highlight differences between you and your opponent on November 4.
Well, to be perfectly honest, my opponent, I've never really met the man, never really had a good conversation with him. But I would say that, I'm, my experience in the public sector, being in the military, I understand what it's like to be a political pawn. I understand exactly how the public service people here in Wisconsin feel when they have a politician that's using them as a political piece. I've been there. But I also understand what it's like to be an employer. I have my own business. I employ 5 people. I make payroll. I know what it's like to pay taxes. I know what it's like to have my own business. I know what it's like to pay my employees before I pay myself. So I've got to, I think that I've got a balance that I can see both sides of the issues that we have presenting us, both on the private sector side and the public side.
Thank you. Isaac Weix of Mondovi is a Republican candidate in the 92nd Assembly District. The election is November 4. Isaac, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good, sir. Thanks.